Owens Corning, this is where you worked closely with the CEO. Then you were recruited by Beatrice, and also from there recruited by
Merrill Lynch, right.
Can you talk a little bit about your experiences at Merrill Lynch?
Well, Merrill Lynch was and is one of the most dynamic companies in the world. And in the financial services business, there's never literally a dull moment. So it's a high wire act at a financial services company like Merrill Lynch, and there's never any let up. The tension is constant. Crisis du jour, whether it's a bond crisis or a credit crisis or some broker's done the wrong thing or whatever, it's just a hugely tension-filled, anxiety-filled role. A lot of people, I loved it, it was great. But with some management changes there and some other things developing in my own life, I wanted to try the agency side, so that's where I went to Burson. So.
Okay. Okay, so you landed at Burson Marsteller right. in '86. And can you just talk a little bit about those challenges that you found when you made that transition?
Sure. Well, I moved over to run the corporate practice at Burson, which was a natural fit for what I'd been doing. And I had experience in 3 different industries, diversified food business, manufacturing, Owens Corning, and then financial services with Merrill Lynch. So I had a good background to do this. And the first couple of years was spent building the corporate practice. And I think by the time we finished that exercise, we were the largest corporate public relations practice in the world. And then I moved into running the New York office, and then the U.S., and then the Americas for Burson. And that's what I was doing until Accenture, at that time Anderson Consulting, convinced me to do something differently. So.
Let's talk just a minute about ethical leadership and get into Accenture and everything that happened there. So it's a very complicated chain of events for me as an outsider, just reading what I was able to read about what happened. It started in '89, which was the year of the establishment of Anderson Consulting within Arthur Anderson firm.
No, that's an erroneous statement. Okay, we'll start with that, because that's a core issue right there, what you just said. In 1989, an organization was formed called Anderson Worldwide.
Okay.
And under Anderson Worldwide was put Arthur Anderson Accounting and Anderson Consulting. They were 2 separate business entities entirely. Anderson Consulting, per se, was never part of Arthur Anderson. It was a sister company. Now, it came out of Arthur Anderson as it was known as the Administrative Services Division of Arthur Anderson. But when they formed Anderson Worldwide, 2 separate companies were formed, and the ownership of those 2 companies were divided between the partners between each. And that was a confusing point throughout the entire set of exercises. And the arbitrator, at the end of the day, clarified that very, very sharply, that there's ownership was split in '89, and there was never any connection after that time. So it's an interesting long story. I was fortunate to be there in the sense that it was a phenomenal public relations and marketing challenge. But it came out of the marketplace driving people's actions in a way that it was unfortunate, because what happened was the consulting business was much more robust and profitable than the accounting business at the time. And the agreement had to do between the 2 companies with sharing earnings each year. And Anderson Consulting was paying Arthur Anderson $100 million a year because of its greater success. Well, Arthur Anderson, in violation, as the arbitrator found later on, of the contract between the companies, was reinvesting that money going back in the consulting business. And the basic agreement in '89 was consulting business was for Anderson Consulting, and auditing and tax was for Arthur Anderson, and there was no to be violation of that. And there was years of arguments about that, of debate, and are you violating the contract or whatever. And finally, in desperation, the management of Anderson Consulting filed an arbitration against Arthur Anderson and Anderson Worldwide. That was the only vehicle they had. They couldn't. The bylaws wouldn't allow litigation, only arbitration. And the arbitrator, 2.5 years later, ruled totally in favor of Anderson Consulting, said that both Anderson Worldwide and Arthur Anderson had violated the contract, and he dissolved the contract. And so there's no longer any connection between the 2. Now, interesting enough, in the contract was the licensing agreement for the use of the word Anderson. that was owned by the Illinois partnership of Arthur Andersen historically. And the contract, which was voided at Andersen Consulting's plea, essentially eliminated Andersen Consulting's ability to use the word. So we had 144 days to find a new name for Andersen Consulting. And working in 100 countries and trying to find a new name, working in global, is almost impossible. We had 5,000 candidate names, and 10 cleared all trademark clearances, et cetera, out of 5,000. Just 10. We could have used only 10. And we picked Accenture. It was an idea of one of our own consultants, and actually it's English is a second language for the person. It's a Scandinavian who said, accent on the future, put them together. It was that simple. So that's where it comes from.
Let's talk just a second about just outsourcing.
Mm-hmm.
Were there functions that you outsourced at Accenture, and do you outsource some work now in the firm
Well,
you're currently in?
a part of the arrangement I had with Accenture was I provided my management services through my own company. I was not an employee of Accenture, but I served as head of marketing. So one outsourcing was to me. I mean, the leadership was outsourced. In addition, there were other opportunities for Murphy & Company to do other work for Accenture. That was part of the contract arrangements. And we do much of the internet work for Accenture, the website, and a lot of internet marketing. In terms of outsourcing the marketing communications functions, we use major global advertising and public relations firms around the world, and we also have used a corporate identity firm. Other than that, there's 500 people at Accenture in marketing and communications, so it's a combination of outsourcing but it wasn't really, we didn't consider it outsourcing. I mean, we considered it specialist skills that we weren't going to staff inside. It's a more traditional view of using agencies as opposed to outsourcing. Although the relationship with Murphy was more an outsourcing situation. So now, in terms of outsourcing, Accenture's in that business of outsourcing to major clients, from major clients, in every business process you can think of. And I would guess there's probably 65,000 employees of Accenture who do outsourcing work for other companies. But not in communications, not in marketing. So.